Hey, what's up guys? It's TechZoomer talking to you here. And you should buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max in 2023. Here's why. So, here's the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And why do I think you should buy this phone in 2023? When we are less than 2 months away from the launch of the iPhone 15 Pro, Pro Max, 15 and 15 Plus, which will bring so many changes to the iPhone lineup that I think it's worth a separate video. And I have several of those, so go check them out. But again, this video is focused on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Why do I think 2 months away from the launch of the iPhone 15 lineup should you buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max? Well, simple. Because I think that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the best value iPhone in the last 2 years, and I think it will still keep this way in the next 1 year or two. Because the iPhone 13 Pro Max has every single thing you need and more, and I think it covers all the needs that I ask for an iPhone. For example, it has 120 Hz, which is my biggest complaint on modern iPhones that don't have 120 Hz, like the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus. Then, it has a triple camera system, which is very complete. It has a very good main camera, which has 12 megapixels, yes, but it's really, really good. The photos are crisp, the video is incredible, and I think you won't be disappointed with this camera. Then, it has a telephoto camera, which is very, very good, and then of course has an ultra-wide camera. The telephoto is probably the worst camera of them all, but still very useful. It's a 3x telephoto, and remember that this iPhone doesn't have the 2x optical zoom on the main lens, so the 3x telephoto is actually useful. Then also has the newest design and a very, very premium build. This iPhone feels just like the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the current flagship in 2023. And for the people back home saying that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is not that much similar to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and they can notice very differences physically at least. Here's them together. This is the iPhone 13 Pro Max, this is the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And as you can tell, they are very, very similar phones. Apart from the colors, they have the same design, the same camera system, the same camera design, the same materials, the same look to them. So when you buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you won't be buying a cheaper looking phone. You will be buying the premium feeling phone. The iPhone 14 Pro Max feels just like the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Although this has a 40 megapixel sensor, this has a 12 megapixel sensor, this has dynamic island, this has the notch. Other than that, there are no more differences. They still feature lightning, they still have their glass frosted backs, they still have stainless steel. They are very, very look-alike phones. So if you get the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you won't be getting a lesser phone. You'll just be getting a little bit worse camera and a little bit worse design in terms of functionality, because the dynamic island on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I think it's a revolutionary feature. And I think it will also feel like the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Although that phone will get a redesign, will get less sharp corners, the overall feel will be the same as the iPhone 13 Pro Max. This phone is built with the most premium materials that ever iPhone have been built. This has stainless steel and frosted glass back. This is incredible, feels amazing in your hand, it's heavy, it's premium. It's like a current flagship in today's world. And of course, there's a screen. It's not just 120 Hz, but it's the contrast ratio, the peak brightness, the small bezels, the notch, which is less intrusive than the current dynamic island. As for the notches, the iPhone 13 Pro Max features this different notch than the dynamic island present on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Again, take a closer look at both notches so you can understand what are the differences. This one is different than this one. This can show you functionality, while this one doesn't. If they are shut off, you can see under the light what are the differences. This is more like a pill-like notch, and this is more like a continuum. So, again, these differences cost you $400. That's up to you to decide. Every single thing on this device is current and up to date, and I think that you will be very happy if you buy one of these. Of course, it's worse than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but keep in mind, this phone is about $300 cheaper than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and when the iPhone 15 Pro Max launches, this phone will drop even on price. And at that time, I want to review this video, go back again and make this video again and see how well this phone stand up against the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Because I think if it weren't for YouTube, I would haven't switched between the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And I think if you buy this phone right now, even 7-8 months after the iPhone 14 Pro Max has came out, you will be very, very happy. Of course, it says its downsides. It doesn't have the 48 megapixel main camera. It doesn't have the amazing ultra-wide camera that the iPhone 14 Pro Max has. Doesn't have the 2x crop on the main camera, doesn't feature 4K 30 on cinematic mode, doesn't feature dynamic island, and above all, doesn't feature USB-C, which will be present on the iPhone 15. So these are the lists of the disadvantages that you are getting when you are buying the iPhone 13 Pro Max in 2023. But consider this. If you are not a professional photographer or someone that really likes photography, the 48 megapixel sensor and the 12 megapixel sensor, you will probably not notice that much of a difference. Then there's the screen, which between the iPhone 14 Pro Max, 15 Pro Max and 13 Pro Max, the only difference will be, of course, the dynamic island. If you don't really care about dynamic island, which I think it's kind of a gimmick right now, then this screen is just perfect. Then of course, there's the fact that this phone has Lightning and the iPhone 15 Pro Max will have USB-C. If you compare this one against the iPhone 14 Pro Max, they are the same. They still have the Lightning speeds, 2.0 speeds, no comparison there. But the iPhone 15 Pro Max will have Thunderbolt, according to rumors. And if that happens, that phone will be way more appetizing for professionals. But if you are watching this video, you are probably not a professional, you just want to buy the latest iPhone, or at least one of the latest iPhone, but you are looking for a budget alternative because you don't want to spend $1,500, $1,400 on the most current iPhone. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max I think will cover all of your needs. The screen is really good, very bright. I think this screen can get up to 1200 nits. It's not the 2000 nit brightness, peak brightness at least, of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but it's still HDR capable, still very bright, very contrasty, still 6.7 inches. It has very, very small bezels. The notch is perfect in my opinion, doesn't cut into your content, is not as wide, and I think you will love this screen once you start using it. Then there's of course the cameras. This has a 12 megapixel sensor, although it's not the 48 megapixel, it's still very sharp, very clear. The nighttime photos here are insane. The portrait modes are also very good. Then there's the telephoto, which is about the same camera as the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the 3x telephoto, no differences there. And then there's the ultra-wide. The ultra-wide here is not as sharp, not as good, especially in low light, as the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I believe it will be even worse when compared to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But again, like I was telling you, if you are looking for a budget alternative, the compromise that you make here is so little that I think it's worth the price. Again, when you want to save money when buying an iPhone, you have to understand that you will have to compromise somewhere. And when you buy the iPhone 12 Pro Max, you will compromise on the screen and the refresh rate and the cameras. And when you buy even older iPhones, you will compromise on the design, on the software upgrades, on the cameras again, on the screen again. So I think that the iPhone 13 Pro Max currently is down that sweet spot where you will not have to compromise a bunch, but you will still save a bunch of money. Because you will not have to compromise on the screen, you will not have to compromise that much on the cameras, the build quality is the same, you still have Lightning, maybe that's the biggest compromise you will make, but then after that, you still have everything. If you are from the US and you buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you will still have the SIM tray slot, which for us, Europeans, is not a problem, but you, US viewer, that's a problem for you, because currently the iPhone 14 doesn't have this SIM card slot, and if you have problems with that, then the iPhone 13 Pro Max solves that issue. Again, I think that this phone is very complete, very, very useful. The only thing that I don't really enjoy on this iPhone and other iPhones, and I don't see why it's there, it's LiDAR. Like, LiDAR is there. Why? Maybe now that Apple launches the Apple VR AR headset that is coming next week, if a video on that on my channel, maybe that will turn out to be useful or not. I'm not sure. But who cares? I don't, at least. Other things that you also feel if you decide to buy this iPhone instead of another cheap Android or cheaper iPhones that are new. For example, the buttons. If you buy for the price of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you decide to buy the iPhone 14, this phone will feel much more premium in the hand. These have stainless steel buttons instead of aluminum buttons. This has the frosted glass back instead of the normal glass back on the iPhone 14s. This has one more camera than the iPhone 14. It has a telephoto camera, while the iPhone 14, or 14 Plus at least, has only two cameras, the main camera and the ultra-wide. These two phones, actually, if you think about it, are about the same phone. The iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Plus are the same phone. The iPhone 14 Plus is just a damned down version of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. It doesn't have stainless steel, doesn't have 120 Hz, doesn't have the telephoto, and in my opinion, is not as premium and not as good. And in terms of battery life, who cares? They have insane battery life. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, when it came out, had about almost 2 days of battery, just like the iPhone 14 Plus. So they have the same chip. This has the A15 chip, while the iPhone 14 Plus has also the A15 chip. The same chip, the same body, the same everything. The only difference again, aluminium instead of stainless steel, which the 14 Plus has aluminium, this one has stainless steel. The frosted glass back, which feels more premium and is better to hold, so the phone doesn't slip as much. Then you have the telephoto, you have LiDAR, and you have 120 Hz, which in my opinion is the biggest complaint about the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, the lack of 120 Hz. And if this phone has it for the same price, with one more camera, the same chip, better display, better build quality, more premium, then why would you buy the iPhone 14 Plus? Just get the iPhone 13 Pro Max instead. And again, when you compare it to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, unless you really need that main 48 megapixel camera and you really enjoy dynamic island, it also doesn't make sense to spend extra $300-400 on an iPhone 14 Pro Max, while the iPhone 13 Pro Max is about 90% or 95% the same phone. For me, as a YouTuber, I run my entire YouTube channel on my iPhone. Yes, makes sense to upgrade for the bigger 48 megapixel sensor. I get better thumbnails, I get better photos, I get especially better video. But do not think that the iPhone 13 Pro Max doesn't have excellent video. This has amazing video. Here's a sample of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So, I'm now recording with the iPhone 13 Pro Max and using the DJI mic for the sound. This is just a video sample of the iPhone 13 Pro Max and is using the 12 megapixel main camera. Also, I'm using the same settings, the same ISO, the same shutter speed, the same white balance settings as I was using with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. This has been recording on the Cinema P3 app, so I have the full control of my camera settings. So they are completely comparable. These have the same settings as the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The only difference is on the sensor. Let me know in the comments down below how it looks. It's very close, I think, for the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but I still think that the iPhone 14 Pro Max looks better. But I want your opinions on the comments down below. Let me know if I made a mistake by upgrading for the iPhone 14 Pro Max, or if the iPhone 13 Pro Max camera is a lot worse than I'm expecting and I'm making it to be. Let me know all of that on the comments down below. Let me know all of that on the comments down below. So, as you saw, the differences are not that much. The audio quality, I use an external microphone. The video quality is about the same on a studio lighting. Maybe when you go outside in more challenging conditions, the iPhone 14 Pro Max delivers you better video and better photo, but on a studio lighting, they are very similar. The only reason that I upgraded was because I'm starting to shoot more car videos now, and having that bigger sensor for outside video makes me want to upgrade and made me upgrade at least. But of course, I will try out the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and if that has a better camera than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I will sell my iPhone 14 Pro Max and buy that one. This is, for me, my main camera, so it makes sense to upgrade every single year. But a normal user, it doesn't. And if you decide to get last year's flagship, so should you buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max in 2023? Yes, for sure. And I just explained you why. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you leave a like down below, subscribe to my channel, follow my social networks, Twitter and Instagram, and go in the comments down below and tell me, do you have an iPhone 13 Pro Max? Would you buy an iPhone 13 Pro Max? Or would you prefer to buy the iPhone 14 Plus? Let me know all of that in the comments down below. This is me, Texmer, talking to you here. Bye-bye.